there's a neurochemical inclination for us to go for the things that evolution, or however you want to explain it, has built our neurochemistry to support our biology. So, for example, if our neurochemistry has evolved in order to support a biological creature long enough that it can reproduce, then what it ends up doing is forces us to find the things that are beneficial for our survival. For example, fatty foods are energy dense. You get 9 calories per gram of fat versus 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates. You get a greater reward from an energy standpoint coming from fats. So they taste good. And the reason they taste good, that's all perception. That's programming. The fruits, the vegetables, and things like that are usually nutrient dense. And that's why they're brightly colored, to get our attention if we're foraging out in the woods. And what colors are Skittles? What colors are Starbursts? It's very much the same. And these companies out there know very well what they're doing, and they market and engineer their marketing in order to appeal to this neurochemistry that supports this biology. And what ends up in a lot of these sober living homes, they take donations, they take grants. They don't really have an awful lot of money to spend on extra stuff, so they take what they can get. And they're very thankful for it. Very, very thankful for it. I mean, without the community, these men and these women wouldn't really have any other option. So one home in particular, they get donations from local food stores. And down in their cafeteria, they've got, some fruits, some vegetables, some breads and things like that. And then they've got the snacks, the pastries, the cakes, the muffins, the donuts. And where's the first place that they go to when they go into the cafeteria? Is they go right for these sweet and savory foods. And they don't realize it. They think that they've kicked their addiction and they're no longer dependent on something that's going to kill them. But at the end of the day, when they eat these foods, they're in fact satisfying their cravings, which neurochemistry look no different than these cravings when they're craving, whether it's pornography or drugs or gambling or whatnot. And they ingest these foods, and what in fact they're doing is they're supplanting one addiction. They're supplanting, say, an opiate addiction with an addiction for food, and not just an addiction for food, but an addiction for food that they're being tricked into believing is necessary for their biological survival. It's a Trojan horse. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. They think that they are eating something that is beneficial for them because it's not as bad as what they would be doing otherwise. But neurochemically, it's the same exact thing. If you were to remove those foods from their availability, even if this were 6 months after they've already not had a craving for their drug of choice, you take these donuts, these muffins, and these cakes away, and you put a pile of dope right there next to them, their brain the brain makes no distinction whatsoever. The neurochemistry has to be satisfied. And when the dopamine levels increase, it tells us that something great is about to happen. And we find that something great in its most potent, most distilled package available. 600 calories in a donut and something that weighs 3.5 ounces. That's a lot of satisfaction. Biological. It is a big punch in a small package, and that is what the brain is craving. It thinks that it's necessary and that it's needed. So when I speak to these men, I make them aware of this, and I let them know that you are not in any state of recovery right now. You're still using. If we hooked you up to a brain scan while you were doing dope and hooked you up to a brain scan while you were eating the donut, it'd be really hard to tell the difference between the two. So you haven't really kicked anything. And the most important piece of any kind of change is awareness. So that's not to say that tomorrow you should go down there and say, screw it, I'm not going to eat a donut. But just know what you're doing when you're doing it. Have that awareness, have that mindfulness. Be aware, I'm eating this donut, it tastes delicious. I love jelly donuts are my favorite, whatever the case is. Just watch yourself do that from a third person. Because eventually, while you're watching yourself do it from a third person, and that becomes an economical thought in the sense that it doesn't require a lot of consciousness in order to have that thought. It's a donut. I've thought about eating it for the last 30 days. I've eaten it 30 days in a row. Now you've actually made room in your bandwidth to have a dialogue inside of your head while you're eating it and recognizing those things. So while you're having that dialogue, you begin to say things to yourself like, this donut's probably really not that healthy for me. I remember what that guy Matt said, and he said that this donut's really no better than a line of cocaine. You start to think about those things, and as long as it's been present in the forefront of your mind while you're doing it, that awareness can lead to change. But if you don't know that, right, and if you don't
Yeah.
know, listen, if there is no squeaky wheel, nothing gets the grease. So you make sure that you amplify your experiences when you're doing things that you not necessarily should be doing. You amplify your awareness to it, because eventually there will be a straw that breaks the camel's back, and then there will be a breakthrough. You'll say, you know what, today I'm not going to go for that. I'll have an extra piece of chicken. And then you begin to think, well, that chicken, you know what, is good for muscle. It's good for this. It's good for that. Next day, I'm going to have a piece of chicken. And little by little, you end up driving out one nail with another nail. And not only have you've not just supplanted one addiction with another, you've supplanted a habit of destruction with a habit of creation.